Welcome to KLEAN Radio, helping to navigate the journey of recovery by removing the stigma and offering a choice for a new life. With your host, Pat O'Brien.
Radio and television personality, we know him from the World Series, a Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Final Four, U.S. Open, a legend.
And distinguished clinical expert, Andrew Spanswick.
Andrew Spanswick is with me, and there's a reason, because he knows everything and I don't.
I'm Robert Shapiro.
I'm Jack Osborne. You're listening to KLEAN Radio. I think you're pretty cool, Andrew. Thank you. I like your vibes. Listen, if I was getting loaded, I totally would come to your treatment center.
KLEAN Radio is presented in part by Pure Simple Juice. Taste the best of what nature has to offer. PureSimpleJuice.com. Addiction is in your backyard. You can join the conversation right now.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien. Welcome to KLEAN Radio for a Sunday night. And the second to last Sunday in July. It's summertime, believe it or not. I mean, we believe it, but it's really summertime. It's been raining in L.A., Andrew.
Yeah, unbelievable. Really raining.
Actually, when it rains in L.A., you do say unbelievable.
It does.
Now.
And everybody's like, I tried to go from Hollywood to the Valley the other day. Don't ask why. But anyway, I tried to go to the Valley.
Why? Do you have a passport?
Yeah, it was insane.
I apologize.
You had to have a passport. No, but anyway, so I tried to go, and the rain had stopped all traffic on all the highways, and I couldn't. It took 3 hours to go. It's amazing. It should have been 10 minutes.
You think of a metropolitan city where people would know how to drive. I mean, Rand DeWitt, our producer and head guy or whatever, I don't know. He's our head guy. No, but he drives from Orange County every day. I don't know how he does it.
He started taking a train.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he went back to World War II transit to be able to get here.
1950s,
yeah,
1940s,
yeah.
mid-40s. Andrew Spanswick is here. He's an expert on addiction studies, mental health, and depression. And as it turns out, kale.
I just can't believe what's going on with kale. I'm horrified by this substance.
Now, if you're not familiar with kale,
how can you not be now? It's like everywhere. So I'm finally, I decide I'm going to treat myself today. So I go and I get a hamburger.
Kale? Oh,
no, I go to have a hamburger, and there's kale in the hamburger. I'm like, they've gone too far. They crossed the line.
That's not right.
No.
By the way, this is your chance to call in tonight because we have a guest later in the hour. A great guest, by the way, Sarah Hepola, who wrote this book, Andrew, Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. It's one of the most honest books I've ever read in my life, and, I've been talking about it all week. And she's going to come on live and talk about women and drinking and recovery and one of our favorites.
Yeah, you've been raving about this book for like weeks.
It's really good. She's really good. I can't wait to talk to her. Great. By the way, this is KLEAN Radio. We're on all over the country. WR in New York. The Mets have lost 2 games in a row, but that's okay. If they go really bad, you can call up Berman.
Yep.
And today they won in 18 innings after a 2-game losing streak.
That's what it took, 18 innings. That's like 2 games. It's 2 games for the price of 1.
9 is 18.
Baseball, they're trying to get a younger demographic by giving you 2-for-1 games.
Andrew is an expert on kale, not baseball. We're also on Seattle, Portland, Astoria, Eugene, New York, of course, the big 710 WOR in LA, KABC, and about to be an iHeart radio station. And it's all, I know there's a cough button here somewhere, but I don't use it. And our call-in number, which is very important tonight, because tonight's kind of your show, 800-222-5222. 800-222-5222. Please call us tonight if you have anything you want to talk about in recovery. We've been tweeting out it all day. Andrew going to pick up some topics for you early, and then please call in tonight. Tonight's your chance to get on the radio. Facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. @KLEAN Radio is in Twitter. Andrew is @KLEAN CEO.
It's the best Twitter handle ever.
I'm @KLEAN POB or @POB Pat O'Brien. And then the most important number we can give you is 24 hours, which is the record for being sober. And also our treatment center number, which is 888-601-6040. 888-601-6040, which is a 24/7 hotline. We're going to have some calls tonight, and that number again is 800-222-5222. But the big news, there's been a lot of news this week, Andrew. I mean, man, the Obama thing, President Obama, I guess people know he's president, right?
I hope so. Point. Yeah.
I wonder if they eat kale at the White House.
I doubt it. I maybe.
I know Clinton didn't.
Well, if anybody did, it was probably Clinton. Or Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah,
Is what I'm
right.
thinking of. Kale and peanuts.
Right? Yeah, we can save the world with kale.
So if you have any questions about kale, we're actually
You know what?
on
I know we're about addiction and recovery. That is our main topic, and I know we're going to talk about that in depth, and we're going to have great calls tonight. But I have to say that I want to use my power of this platform, the power of this platform,
Right.
to put out there. If anybody can send me a kale recipe that's the best kale recipe in the world that I can actually eat, I'll give them a free KLEAN hoodie.
Right, and a hat, by the way.
Yeah.
Or that you'll want to eat twice.
Yeah,
That's
something
the
that
key.
I would eat twice, and something that I would look at in a menu and go, "Oh, I gotta have that."
And let me just say that don't have Andrew and I come to your restaurant and have kale on the menu.
Every restaurant
There's
in
no
LA has
reason
now
to
got
have it.
kale on it.
Now we're going to be banned in
All right.
restaurants. So anyway, President Obama has been out and about, and we were talking before the show about, he's trying to get things done in his last few months, the last year actually of his presidency. And Andrew and I both, can I speak for you on this? We
Sure,
both
yeah.
enjoyed that he went to a federal prison, and he kind of went there, but for the grace of I. But it got lost in the shootings down there in the South, and we'll get to that in a minute too. But Andrew and I have been talking about this for a long time. Andrew Spanswick, by the way, addiction specialist and kale specialist, at Andrew Kale.
Yeah, right? We start a new movement.
We can stop that now.
Okay.
I will. $80 billion a year is spent on incarceration, Andrew. Most of them people of color. And the president, to make a statement, commuted 46 people or whatever, because the sentences are just too long for crimes that they don't meet the sentence.
Yeah, there's a lot of non-violent crimes that people are getting a third strike or a large mandatory federal sentencing. And so there's people in prison for things that are now even legal. So it's just crazy.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think most of the people he actually commuted their sentence for were cocaine, which I was a little surprised. I thought he would actually go through and let out more of the longer-term marijuana dealers and stuff like that are in jail and probably shouldn't be at this point.
Yeah, it was a bold move because most people, when they say drug convictions, they say, well, he's soft on drugs. Well, he's not.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to change the justice system. And Andrew and I are big proponents of not throwing people away in prison and getting them into some sort of drug court or rehab or that sort of thing.
Well, what I like about what's going on with Obama is that he's really starting to talk about, how are we going to reform the prison system? Because that's really the issue here. It's not just that we have to deal with mental illness and we have to deal with substance abuse, but the whole prison itself, like the military-industrial complex, has gotten out of control. It's become a profit system. We've outsourced a lot of it to private companies, and we're the largest prison population of any first world country. How can that be? I mean, it's just crazy.
And you go to some of these prisons, which Obama did this week. I've been up to where Charles Manson is, up in Chino and Tex Watson. I was doing an interview up there. And I had guys who were in there for like 30 years for having a roach in their
it's because it was their third strike. Yeah, they're on probation and whatever, and they get pulled over for something. I'm not saying that those people should just get away scot-free and that there shouldn't be some sort of ramifications for chronic, criminal behavior. But, the sentencing doesn't match the crime, and judges' wrists have been tied in terms of being able to give a fair sentence because of these mandatory sentencing laws.
And we're very high on the drug court. At least I am. You have to be too, because what happens is a lot of judges, by the way, who are in recovery,
right,
will say, "Look, do you want to go to a recovery program, rehab, or jail?" And a lot of people will pick jail, which is weird, right?
Yeah, a lot of there was a stat I just read the other day that said something like most of the people that are actually in jail owe like around $200, and that's why they're in jail. A lot of this is actually punitive to people
it's bail.
that just don't have resources.
The average is like $250.
Yeah, they can't even meet $250 bail, and so it's a regressive. It has a regressive impact on people of lower income.
Here's an idea taken from Andrew and me right now. Is that if we spend $80 billion a year on incarceration, shouldn't we take about $10 billion of that and just pay these small bonds and get people back into society? But that brings us to our to another topic about recovery, and that is when do you decide? I was reading the New York Times the other day, and of course, I love my New York Times.
Yep.
It's not a Bible anymore to me, but I do love it. But they're talking about these people that get out of prison and they have no idea what to do. Now, I help a couple people who've been in prison. Mm-hmm. And they don't know what to do. The question becomes, and you can call in on this, by the way, at 800-222-5222. The question becomes, when do you decide to really change your life and go to rehab, Andrew?
Yeah,
Not you,
well, I know for a lot of people it's very different things, and sometimes people say that jail or prison saved their lives, and I think when some people's lives get so out of control and they have no ability to contain or constrain their own behavior, jail can serve that purpose, unfortunately.
Get you off the street,
but that doesn't mean it's the right thing. It just means there's no other resource that's equivalent of being able to contain and hold someone and then deal with what really is a problem with mental illness. So, we've taken away all the mental health beds and we've made all these prison beds. And so people actually are committing crimes to get help for mental illness and addiction. And I mean, that to me doesn't really sort of symbolize a civilized society.
Well, that brings us to Mohammed Abdulaziz, who was the guy who allegedly killed these 5 soldiers down there in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And the stories all week have been, and this is, excuse me, this is, maybe I should use the cough button, do you think?
I don't know. It's all right.
It's okay.
It makes you human. It makes you human.
This is kale.
You got a piece of kale stuck in your throat. I thought we were done with kale.
No, we're not.
Okay. All right.
The stories and all the news this week have been that did this guy have mental problems?
Yep.
And whether or not he did or not, I would think that if you kill that many people, you have some sort of mental aberration going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's different definitions of there's different definitions of mental illness from a criminal standpoint versus a legal standpoint. So judging someone's mentally competent to stand trial doesn't necessarily mean that they're sane or that they don't suffer from a mental illness. I think
there's a checklist for that.
Yeah,
right?
So I think people that kill people, there's got to be something pretty wrong for you to really kill people. Certainly people that you don't even know. But there's a lot of fanaticism in this world now on a lot of different fronts, not just on the Muslim terrorist, whatever fundamentalist front. But the big thing here is our concern about the spreading across the board to other radical, extreme ways of thinking and thinking that violence is a way to solve problems.
Well, it's also about anger too, isn't it? About anger and the not being able to control your inner feelings of anger or resentments and that sort of thing, which is the second level of this sort of
Yeah,
crime.
I mean, I think that's a great point. I think that, there's a lot of people that have a lot of anger, a lot of issues, and there's no way in our society that people have to just deal with that anger in appropriate ways. And a lot of people don't want to listen. And a lot of people also watch so much TV and so much media, and they take on all these outside problems and they make them their problems. They personalize them, and then they feel like somehow they have to project the feelings out again. And you get this crazy stuff like all these mass shootings. And it's just something we really need to look at as a culture. Right.
And when you say we need to look at it, by the way, our treatment center line is 888-601-6040. And our call-in number is a couple lines open, 800-222-5222. Let's finish that thought, because I think a lot of people in recovery get angry because they have to be in recovery. And you've seen this much more than I have.
Yeah, I mean,
I was angry.
Well, a lot of people talk about coercive versus non-coercive treatment, and this is a major issue. Some people decide on their own that because they're having ramifications in their life, loss of spouse, loss of job, health problems.
That turns to anger, right?
Right. And a lot of those people will seek treatment on their own or look for help. But then there's a whole other group of people that get put into the system coercively through the court system. So people that get DUIs or people that were engaged in domestic violence or something, and they get pushed into treatment and they don't want to go, and they see it as a punishment. And that's been an issue, I think, a lot for treatment professionals, is how to take people that have been coercively forced into treatment and make that treatment still effective. And that's a very difficult thing to do.
And not make them angrier for going into treatment. I want you to talk about that.
Resentful.
Resentful, yeah. Because I've been to a few rehabs, more than I need. Well, no, I went to the right number, I guess, if I'm sober, right?
Hey, it's working now.
Yeah. But anyway, I talked to a lot of people in rehab, as you do, obviously. Mm-hmm. And the anger issue, and we're going to get to shame in a minute, but the anger issue is very high on their list. I'm pissed. Can we say that? I'm angry.
We just did,
right? I'm angry at my parents. I'm angry at my brother. I'm angry at my girlfriend or boyfriend. And it spindles into uncontrollable alcohol and drug use or mental health. And there's a way, what do you say to people? Well, how do you deal with that in the rehab as an addiction specialist?
I think all these
don't
issues.
serve them kale.
Don't serve them kale because that'll make them really mad. Actually, it's funny. Nutrition's probably a part of it, but I think that certainly dealing with people's emotions and their feelings and their problems has always been a difficult thing to do. And as much as people complain about the pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical companies have given us drugs that, if used properly, can give us a brief window to work with people. That's a key word, though, and that's why you're an addiction specialist, the brief window. Yeah. Because the window can Well, this is what drives me absolutely insane about general practitioners giving, say, antidepressants for multiple years without people actually getting some sort of other treatment behind it. Without therapy, the effectiveness of those drugs long-term is pretty much close to less than 40%. So you have to have a multitude of treatment protocols going on, not just medication. Mary Lou is calling in. Hi, Mary Lou. It's Pat and Andrew. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Well, you sound pretty good. Are you a kale eater?
Yes.
You are?
Do you have a choice these days? It's in everything.
I like it in salads.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's actually, kale and salads makes a little sense. Not to us, but anyway, that's not what you call. Where are you calling from, Mary Lou?
Irvine.
Irvine, great.
Wow, great.
Is it raining down there? I can hear it raining.
It is raining. No? It is.
Guess it's going to have a long train ride home. Anyway, so what's your question tonight, Mary Lou?
Well, my question is, how does somebody who's been recovered for 8 years, how do they get back into the workforce?
That's a great question. This is something that we deal with almost every day. And a lot of addicts have felonies on their records and they can't vote anymore. They can't get jobs. And that's depressing. And that ends up with people relapsing a lot. So it's something that really hasn't been answered well. And that's why I just started a nonprofit called Well in Mind. And we're actually doing a lot of job training and creating jobs for people coming out of addiction because they're actually great workers. And people have just chosen... Nothing wrong with them. And people have chosen to just ignore them as part of the workforce. So we're really working hard at trying to figure out different ways to integrate work programs back into treatment. And I think, too, Mary, are you speaking from... It's none of my business, but I'm making it. Personal, or do you have a friend? Or
No, it's a friend of mine who had been a football coach, and when he was involved, he actually took a leave of absence from that because he didn't want to be around the kids. Right. He went through his thing, and, he was, I think, on a probation and then got caught for paraphernalia or something. I don't really know the whole story because I didn't even know him at the time. But all I know is he got out. He's been recovered for 8 years. He went back to school, went to college, got a degree, and tried to get back into teaching and coaching and couldn't and hasn't been able to. To me, that's almost an anomaly. I mean, Andrew and I see and speak to a lot of people who are out of the workforce and come back in. And, most bosses, Andrew, now are tolerant of they're happy to see somebody get help, right? They should be. I mean, I think that there's still is a huge wrong? There's still a huge stigma, and I think in certain industries, especially where minors are involved, or obviously like pilots, it used to be, for example, that physicians in California had a diversion program, which meant that if you were a doctor or a nurse and you ended up with a problem with drug addiction because you had exposure and the ability to get a lot of drugs, that you could go to the medical board and you could say, hey, I have a problem, and they would put you in treatment, and then they would monitor you for several years and make sure that you could go back to treating people and working well. Well, there's a few people out there that had a very strong lobbying group, and they said that no, if you're caught being an addict at all and you have any issue with this, it's too dangerous for them to be around people anymore, and they got rid of the diversion program. So what's going on now is in these highly sensitive... Don't they relicense them now, or no? No, I mean, if you get caught and you lose your license, and it's a real problem. I mean, and there's no diversion programs anymore. So basically you're driving it further underground, and you're making people do more drastic and extreme things to avoid getting caught, or go to different states and get licensed in different states. Mary Lou, thanks for your call. Anything else? Nope, that's it. Okay, good call. Thank you. Be careful out there in the rain. That's Mary Lou, who is calling us and talking about the employers. And I have found that people are pretty generous
about letting people back in. But you're right, there are those hardcore people. And that brings us to one of our favorite topics around here is that we try to end the stigma of recovery. And, they say that one active alcoholic effectively affects the lives of 9 people directly and possibly 16 or a couple dozen indirectly. So
and
it's a big deal.
It also goes to a larger question of our own morality as a culture. If someone has a problem and they get treatment for it and they're dealing with it, do we allow and integrate them back into society, or do we say that they can't come back in, that they have to continually be somehow stigmatized? What is that noise?
That's your dog.
That's my dog. My dog is being tortured in the studio. I don't know what's going on.
Where's Rand?
Oh,
okay, never mind. But I mean, and in recovery, I think one of the biggest questions is, which I found over at the when I was talking to people over at the West Hollywood KLEAN Center, is that people wondered how to get. That's a great question, Mary Lou. How to get back into the workforce? And I think you just have to keep doing it. You just have to. If you want to work again, a lot of people actually don't want to work, but if you want to work again, or if you came out of a high-powered job, you should be able to show them that. I mean, don't you have certificates? You say to people they've been in treatment and it's not an AMA or without medical.
It's not like that, but I'll recommend people for jobs if I know that they're sober. I'm working with them, and but they have to disclose it. There's a lot of laws right now called Hepola laws, which have to do with privacy, and I think that privacy is still a very important part of all of this. I think a lot of people wouldn't get help if there weren't privacy laws. So, but if people are willing to disclose things to them, I'm more than willing to go out and help deal with issues like employment and talking to employers and educating employers about, what addicts are able to do and what they're not able to do, what to look for and how to help people. I mean, if somebody had diabetes and
cancer,
sure. You, as an employer, you should be willing to educate yourself to look out for issues like that they have low blood sugar and maybe they need to have their insulin checked. But we don't do that with substance abuse or other issues. We don't look for people missing a lot of days of work and integrating that into our HR components within companies and making sure that we're looking out for our employees. And you invest so much in an employee, you would think that people would start to wise up and realize that getting loyalty and continuing people to stay in the workforce is of great value to the company. Losing people to addiction is extremely costly to companies, and it doesn't help anything. It just makes things worse all the way around.
When we come back here, Sarah Hepola is going to join us, and she's written this book that I've been raving about called Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. It's like some dance to remember and some dance to forget, right? But it's a terrific book, and if you don't have it...
That was a Stevie Miller quote.
What?
It's the Eagles.
No, it's the Eagles,
I'm sorry, yeah.
Some dance to remember.
I got it.
All right.
Yeah. It took me 2 times.
No,
it's because I ate so much kale today, I can't think.
It is kale. Sarah's going to join us when we come back right around the other side. Thank you.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to KLEANTreatmentCenters.com. That's clean with a K.
Back with our generic music.
I like that music, by the way.
Who is it?
I have no idea, but I like it. Nobody knows who it is. I mean, he's a little more edgier going into the...
Is that Marilyn Manson?
No.
That's what Rand thinks it is. Welcome back. I'm Pat O'Brien along with Andrew Spanswick, and we're here. We're talking good conversation tonight about some of the things going on in the country. Sarah Gilbert is our social media expert, and she's on the line now. Hi, Sarah. How are you? Hello, Sarah. How are you?
You hit it twice. We're having technical difficulties.
No, we're not. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
Hey, Sarah.
Sarah.
How are you guys there?
How are things up in Seattle?
Too many Sarahs on the phone tonight.
I know. We
That's
have
right.
another Sarah coming up, Sarah Hepola, who wrote this book called Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. What's going on our social media tonight?
Well, we do have a couple of questions. We have, first one is from Allie, our loyal fan. She asked, what is the difference between a life coach and a sober coach?
That's a good question. We've had life coaches on,
Yep.
and they kind of go in and take over your life in terms of a lot of things, financially and that sort of thing. A sober coach, I think, is stricter, right, Andrew?
It's more
like a sponsor.
It's more a push towards addiction and recovery. So there's plenty of people out there that sell themselves as life coaches, and it's one of those categories where you don't have to be licensed for anything. So a lot of people that want to be therapists or feel like they have something to give in terms of overall lifestyle will often represent themselves as life coaches. Sober coaches generally, once again, it's not a licensed category, but they generally are sort of supportive of people that are already in recovery, and then they encourage them on a sober lifestyle.
Right, and they keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, and some of these people are amazingly great, and some of them are absolutely terrible and almost like cult-like figures. Once again, it's something that I don't discourage people from engaging in, but buyer beware, because
exactly,
and even with licensed professionals, buyer beware. It's not a guarantee that someone being licensed is going to help, but I wouldn't take medical advice from any of these people, and I wouldn't take advice that's outside the scope of general sort of living.
And there's a whole cottage industry around these sober coaches. I know that. Now, some of them are great, but they're expensive.
Some of them are crazy. I mean, upwards of $1,000 a day. And a lot of them, I believe, overpromise what they can actually deliver.
Right. A lot of rock stars hire them. Sarah Gilbert, you're back on.
All right, and the next question is from Brad. What is the main difference between IOP and inpatient, and would you always recommend inpatient no matter what?
No, actually, I generally prefer not to recommend inpatient unless it's absolutely necessary.
Really?
Yeah, we generally try to put people in the lowest level of care possible. So that would be outpatient starting first, and sometimes just with a therapist. But there's certain criteria that people meet that means that we believe that their acuity or the height of their illness is at the point that they need inpatient services. And those services specifically start out with people that actually need a medical detox.
And also we found at KLEAN that people have like lives, raising kids or college or something, are better with outpatient, right?
Yeah, I think that outpatient done properly is actually a very effective way of at least starting getting into treatment. And sometimes, and it's just good to deal with, like I've talked about, there's a lot of people that are not fully addicts, but substances and life choices are making their lives extremely difficult. So you can be abusing drugs and not be addicted and have extreme consequences in your life. We see this a lot in college years where people are binge drinking a lot. Most people will age out of that behavior. But a lot of people during that time will also have a lot of conflicts, and a lot of issues from their life will start to come up. And it's a very cutting line there between addiction and abuse. And it's a good time if people are feeling like they're starting to have consequences from drug abuse and addiction to go in and start really working on what issues might be driving that.
All right. In about 2 minutes, somebody who had a lot of consequences but got out of them is Sarah Hepola, who wrote this book, which I think is one of the great books ever about recovery. Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. Sarah Gilbert, run through our social media contacts.
Okay, we're at facebook.com/KLEAN Radio, at KLEAN Radio on Twitter, and then KLEAN Radio also on Instagram.
Good job tonight.
So
We'll talk to you
follow us.
soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sarah.
There's a book that came out, it's out now, and it's called Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. And Sarah Hepola wrote it and joins us now. But this book, Andrew, and I think I called you about it earlier this week, and I said, you got to read this book. And we reached Sarah, and she's on with us now. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, you guys are so sweet. Thank you.
Well, you don't know if we're sweet.
No, that's true. That was a blind guess.
Okay,
you
well,
guys were flattering me, and I liked it.
It was a good guess.
That?
By the way, do you like kale?
Yeah, sure.
You
Wow.
do?
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're fascinated by people who like kale.
Yeah.
But
Well, like if it's got like dressing on it, and I mean, I'm not going to go overboard with it. I'm not going to put it on everything.
But that means you like dressing, not that you like kale.
Shut up. What's wrong with you?
Okay. Well, I like kale as a delivery system for different things. How
Okay.
about
That's
that?
good.
That's fair.
That's the way to put it.
Right.
Anyway, Sarah Hepola has written this book called Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. I was a blackout drinker, and I used to drink until I clicked, which I used to call it. But
I love that, the click.
Yeah, I used to
Click.
just like click, and then bang. I didn't have any consequences other than to embarrass myself and my family, and I guess that's consequence. I didn't lose my job or anything. but you have been through it, girl, and man, you're so honest about it. Do you think? Tell us a little bit about. I can tell it, but I'd rather have you tell about what the book's about.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the book is about falling in love with alcohol and believing that alcohol can fix you. I fell in love with alcohol at a very young age. The first time I had a drink, I had a drink of my dad's beer when I was like 5 or 6, and then you were supposed to be like, oh, that's super gross. And I was like, what is that? I need more of that. And I started stealing sips of my mom's Pearl Light that she left in the fridge. My mom is such a non-alcoholic that she wouldn't finish her can of beer. And
we hate those people. I used to anyway.
What is going on? Why? But so she would leave half the can, and then I would start stealing sips. And I knew that it was off limits, but I don't quite think I knew exactly what I was doing. I just knew that I loved the taste of it. I loved the way it made me feel. I would take a few sips, and I would spin around the living room. I was like 7 years old, and I kept doing this 8, 9, 10, and it was just getting, you push the envelope.
Sure.
But anyway, I fell in such intense love with alcohol, and I really believed that it made me the person I always wanted to be. And I think that's a delusion that a lot of us share. You come into the world with these insecurities, like I feel shy, or I doubt my creative talents, or I can't talk to boys. And the alcohol took those things away. It was like this magic carpet ride. It was unbelievable. And so, just like anybody else that finds God at that age through the bottle or through the needle or whatever, I followed that until the dark end. I mean, I went 25 years with it. So, I drank until I was 35 years old. And that was when I finally realized, after many years of hoping that I was wrong, that this thing was not going to fix me, and the thing that I thought gave me power was absolutely robbing me of power. It was robbing me of all the things I thought it was giving me, life, friendship, spirit, everything.
Right.
And then you have to learn to live without it, which is the last part of the book, the part that I didn't understand at all, and is what your, radio show now offers to people, which is the idea that life exists after sobriety. I just didn't have any idea.
Sarah Hepola is our guest. Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. Is that a women thing, Andrew, do you think? I mean, I'm not trying to separate women drinkers and men drinkers, because women, I think, and Sarah points out that she hated when her friends approached her, right. and you get so, what's the word, Sarah? You get so resentful of your own friends when they say, are you okay?
Oh, when people come to you and confront you and stuff, and I mean, it's so bristly, and you're so embarrassed, and yeah.
Yeah, I think, the whole gender issue and addiction is very interesting. And, we have programs that are mixed, our genders are mixed in treatment, and we have programs where genders are separated. And I think it's a very individual choice as to whether they want, what environment they want to be in to get sober, or how they deal with it when they're drinking. And, drinking is the sort of thing, and drug addiction is the sort of thing where a lot of people are issues that are really driving their addiction are not necessarily positive things. A lot of people have trauma, they have sexual abuse, they have other issues, they have alienation and emotional abuse from their parents. And while people that don't drink find other ways to deal with it, people that drink and use drugs end up trying to cover or mask the pain of those problems with the drug. And what actually happens is you get a developmental delay in your growth as an individual, because the alcohol and the drug masks the problem for so long. But you also start seeing all these other people representing the problem in your life, and you think you're trying to actually figure out a way through that relationship to deal with it and figure it out, but all you're really doing is exacerbating the trauma. And so that's why you see people engage over and over and over again in traumatic relationships or abusive relationships, because they want to have the feeling of that abuse, because they want to try and figure out how to solve it. And I think the same thing's true of drug addiction and alcoholism, where people know that if they have that drink, something bad's going to happen, like they're going to black out. And it's happened to them over again. And there's been extremely negative consequences, but they still do it because they feel like there's some sort of answer they haven't gotten that they need to get out of that.
Is that true with you, Sarah? I mean, you're quite honest about it.
Well, there's a few things. I mean, one of them is this idea. I mean, this mastering of the narrative thing. I'll tell you what, I was obsessed with the idea that I could drink without blacking out. I do know that. Like, I was completely obsessed that that was like, I needed to find the key and I could solve it. and if I just drank in this certain way that I hadn't figured out yet, I just cooked the books in this one way, I could do it.
And that's bargaining, right? That's bargaining. First you have denial that you have addiction, or you have denial that you have blackouts, and then you start bargaining. This is a classic way of trying to have a defense mechanism to protect your drinking.
But there's nothing worse, I'll let you finish, Sarah, there's nothing worse than having to wake up, as you point out in the book a bunch of times, and say things like, what happened to my jeans last night? Or why is there a corn dog in my bed? That's my favorite one of the book. But to ask your own friends, what did I do,
It's awful. It's absolutely thunderously awful. But the weird thing is for me, I would wake up in terror, and I would be like, this is so wrong, I can't do this anymore. But then by like noon, we would all meet for brunch, and we'd be laughing about it. I think that was very confusing for me, that my story tracked along with a moment when binge drinking and also women's stories about kind of catastrophic, adventurous, drunken escapades were becoming almost like you were like the heroine of your own story. Like, oh, isn't that funny that happened? That corn dog in my bed story, by the way, like that was a really funny joke that like I used at a lot of parties. Like I woke up and there was a corn dog in my bed and I was hungry, so I ate it. That's a true story.
Well,
I mean, and that's the thing. That's the thing
in the Paris Hotel too, which I'm not going to divulge, but that's
that's a big part of, and I think a problem still to some degree with alcoholism and the treatment of alcoholism is that there is this worse story aspect to it, where people, I mean, they are funny stories, they're amusing stories.
That's why we tell them.
If you survive them.
Yeah, exactly.
And what makes them extremely funny for people with alcoholism or drug addiction is that they can relate to the fact that they've done things equally as stupid. But yet or reckless, I should say, not just stupid, but more reckless. And I think that, people that aren't alcoholics or drug addicts hear these things and they're a lot of them are horrified. They're like, oh my God, if I woke up with a corn dog in my bed, I certainly wouldn't eat it. Well, far less be okay with the fact that it was there in the first place.
I started drinking one Sunday morning in New York and woke up in my bed in L.A. on Tuesday, having made a sexual call to somebody I'd known and all that kind of stuff. It's mildly famous. And I remember Howard Stern making fun of me to this day, every day, and I said, that'd be funny if it wasn't me.
Right.
Yeah.
But your stories, have you seen Trainwreck?
The
movie?
I saw it last week.
Does it remind you of anybody?
Yeah, it was like so much like my life. It sort of freaked me out.
I think Amy Poehler owes you some money.
Oh my gosh, there's this scene where she wakes up and she's in Staten Island. I mean, this exact same thing happened to me in Queens. And I used to make a joke about and I didn't know where I was in Queens. Like the whole thing, like so much about her life is so familiar to me. And, I also think that Amy Schumer and I are reflecting a certain strain of your single independent female in the 21st century, who's like doesn't have kids and doesn't have a husband. And this is sort of her answer to how are you going to have a big life as a single woman?
I love the line when Bill Hader calls her back and her friend says, what's wrong with him? Should we call the police? He's calling you back after a one-night stand.
I know.
What did you learn about yourself from this book? What did
oh my
Sarah?
Gosh!
Yeah.
I mean, I learned so much about myself, but probably one of the things that I learned was I don't know, just how sensitive I am. I think I had gone through a lot of my life trying to be tough, and I realized underneath that what a sensitive soul I am, and how much of myself I was drinking in order to be liked, and how much I moved through the world trying to please other people. It's not like that was a big super revelation to me, but I don't think I had realized how much of that was linked through all my behaviors, that everything is really designed to make you love me more. It just didn't always work. Sometimes it backfires.
We see this so much in addiction, and I would say that one of the things that most people that have problems with addiction and substance abuse suffer from is loneliness and isolation. there's a lot of psychosexual issues in development that have to do with this too. When people go through pubescence and start reaching out, and this need to be liked to fulfill, these sexual feelings they have for other people, and trying to figure out how to be cool and how to make that work. For people that don't have an addictive personality, they tend to grow through that period. But people that have a strong inclination to becoming an addict, whether it be genetic or whatever, who cares? But they'll fall into this trap where all of a sudden their identity, their ability to be feel relaxed, their ability to have a little bit of disinhibition that allows them to express their true feelings about people without the fear of being rejected. That's what drives a lot of early alcoholism and addiction.
I think Amy Schumer, her character wakes up and she looks out the window and she's on the other side of New York City. Right. She's in Staten Island. Right. She sees the ferry. It's one of the great scenes ever. What's been the reaction to the book, Sarah?
I mean, it's been incredibly positive. The book hit the bestseller list in the first week that it was out, which was amazing. If you're not a reality TV show star or a cable news pundit, that's a hard thing to do, So I was really, really happy that I get my inbox is just, it's every day I'm hearing from people that say, I have this problem. This is me. You wrote my life. I black out all the time. I don't know how to stop. And blackout drinkers, they live in fear and shame because they don't know what they've done. They have to wake up and they look at the grill of the car. They have to wake up and check on the kids. How do the kids get in bed? They have to wake up and see who's in bed with me. You don't know what you're capable of, and it's a terror that you're living in. And so when they read this story, they realize two things. One, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. And then B, that somebody can live through that and go out the other side. You don't have to live like that anymore, and that sobriety is a life that can be full of as much, adventure and all the things that I was drinking toward, I could find in sobriety.
Yeah, I remember when I first came out of one of my first AA meetings 10 years ago. And my thing, like you, I never thought I could stop drinking, and like you, I didn't want to stop because I was having too much fun doing the other thing. And I remember driving down the street saying, I'll never go to a bar again. I'm not going to have any fun.
Yeah.
And I hear all this laughing coming out of this bar outside on my left window. And I look over, and it's a Starbucks. It's not a bar. And there's a bunch of sober people sitting around. Did you have a question, Andrew? Were you going to talk?
No, it would kind of pass. But, one of the things that I wanted to stress is that that people that get into this situation with alcohol or drugs, people often try to say, oh, well, it's because of alcohol or drugs that, your choices early on that you almost deserve these problems. And the truth is that other people go through developmentally a lot of these problems, but because they're not addicted and they don't have this drive to keep using, they're able to find other ways to get out of them. The people that are addicted and have abuse issues don't get until they get sober. And so when you get sober, you really get a new lease on life. It really is like a second chance. And that's really sort of the miracle of recovery.
Well, the second chance, and Sarah Hepola points this out in her book. She says, now she has tools from recovery to deal with the issues. Sarah, what are you doing now? I know you write for the New York Times Magazine, New Republic, Glamour, and all that. But what's going on in your life now?
Yeah. Well, I'm still the personal essays editor at Salon, which I've done for 7 years now, which is a really profound thing. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, back in the 90s. But I get to kind of shepherd people through, telling their stories, which I've always loved other people's stories. That's just a way to get out of my own head. It's kind of therapy for me. So I still do that. And, this book has been taking over a lot of my time. But, I'm starting to figure out what I want to do next. I want to start writing the next book, and I want to, travel. I mean, you start doing the festival route.
Right.
And going and meeting people. I love meeting people talking about this book. It's really incredibly cool because it's kind of like an AA meeting and a book signing.
Yeah.
It's just like you get to hear people's stories, and it's amazing. Amazing.
Did you get my book yet? In the mail?
I haven't. Well, I just got back from being out of town, and I get my mail to the post office. So or it's not the post office.
You want to be frightened? Read that book if you want to be frightened. Sarah Hepola is our guest, and she writes a lot, she talks a lot, and she's great. And she writes I was so fascinated by this book, Sarah, that you write like you talk, which is really a talent and a gift.
Oh, thank you.
And the final question was a big one. Will you marry me?
That will take, if you do that, Sarah, I just have to warn you, the treatment for that is much more difficult than the treatment for addiction.
No, but it pays well, though.
It pays well.
Hey,
oh, my goodness.
Sarah, hey, Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
And Sarah, if you're ever out in LA,
you're so
please
welcome.
come out
Thank you
here
guys
and
so
visit
much.
us. If you're in LA, come out and
I will. I'm
be here in the
coming out
studio.
in the fall. That sounds great.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Excellent.
All right, so we're
Thanks
gonna
so
have
much.
we're gonna have your book on our website, and you're great, and your story is great, and a lot of people can learn from it. There's Sarah Hepola. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that book, if you don't have it, is who's the publisher on that book? Or do people sometimes look by
I didn't
publishers?
even notice. Yeah, it's Grand Central.
Yeah, and it's really good. You can read it quickly because it's so interesting to read. But that's I asked her if that was a woman thing. I didn't mean it demeaning, but we find in therapy and in recovery that a lot of women have had Sarah's story, and they go
also,
out and they're
Pat,
sexually
just
because I waited until she got off the phone to bring that up.
feminism has supported the equality of women. That doesn't mean that women and men aren't different. And there are women's issues and there are men's issues, and these are important facts. And just because men and women are equal now doesn't mean that there still aren't important clinical distinctions and life distinctions. I mean, the life of a woman and the development of a woman is very different than the life and development of a male. And that's just gender. There's so many more issues that separate people. But also, the good news is that at the end, we're all sort of the same. We're more alike than we are different.
I was surprised to learn that Sarah liked kale.
I know. It kind of ruined my whole theory.
Yeah, I was like, she kind of lit up.
Maybe
when
this
we
is our
brought-
big gender issue. Maybe it's a women.
Maybe you and I
woman
are
thing.
behind the times on this.
I think we might be. We might have. That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't
I want
mind
someone out
admitting
there
it.
to send me the best kale recipe ever. It can't have alcohol, obviously, or drugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew spent 10 minutes before the show tonight showing me pictures of kale, and I've never been so disgusted in my life.
Well, it turns out it's a cabbage, a form of cabbage. I didn't
And
know
I'm
that.
Irish. I should like that, right?
What I liked about that was that this is how awful kale can be. Then the tradition in Ireland is you have to put a coin in the coin in the kale dish so that people eat it so that they can hopefully find the coin. I think that pretty much makes my case. I'm going to leave that to the audience.
The next time
making a judgment on kale.
Andrew and I go out a lot. Next time we go out, let's stop complaining about whether our oysters got there.
Right.
And ask them where the coin is.
In our kale.
Yeah,
we ordered the kale. We want to know who got the coin.
Just to wrap things up.
It'll be a chip. It'll be a kale sobriety chip.
How many days are you on kale? I think one of the, and by the way, Sarah Hepola was great, and she's...
yeah, go buy the book. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Blackout, remembering things I drank to forget. Unbelievable.
There's nothing worse than a blackout. You weren't a blackout person, were you?
No, I've never blacked out, but I've heard stories that just terrify me from
I'm in
clients.
a self-absorbed blackout every now and then.
That's called narcissism.
As you know, yeah. Well, you know what a narcissist is, don't you? Somebody who looks better than you.
Oh, wow.
Snap.
Okay. That's I got to eat more kale to improve my complexion.
No, that's the old line. I think it was F. Scott Fitzgerald. 888-601-6040 is our treatment center line, and that's the kind of place you can call up and find out. If you think you have a problem. They're not going to force you into rehab or anything, but they'll answer your questions for you, right?
Absolutely. It's as much a helpline as it is a line to actually find resources for you for treatment, whether it be with my companies and my rehabs or in my company's rehabs and the people that work with us, or if it's other services that are more appropriate for you where you live around the country, because we're everywhere. So
yeah, we are, and we're about to be everywhere more. Is that possible? We're about to be
more everywhere.
No,
more
that's
widespread.
not right.
And
we're about
greater,
to be.
You'll be able to access us.
Look at Rand. Look at us.
Right?
Like,
It's
these
like-
are the two biggest
right?
idiots.
Right.
We're going to be.
We'll be at the Kale Convention next week.
I bet there is a kale convention.
You know what? If there is, we got to go there.
Oh,
You know what?
absolutely.
Yeah, we should sponsor an AA group at a Kale Convention. Can you imagine the
Recovery group.
stories?
Andrew and I are.
Could you imagine the stories?
Oh, I mean, we would go. Well, actually, we would go.
We would find out what's really in kale. First of all, I bet there's a guy there that would come in and be like, "You wouldn't believe this. I brought kale to America, and I was blacked out when I did it."
Right. And he was Dutch.
Right, and he was Dutch. He choked on an Irish coin.
Stop it. Facebook.com/Clean Radio is our Facebook page. And this week we're starting something new called Clean Daily. And Andrew and I will be doing topics of noted topics about recovery. And it'll be on cleanradio.com and Clean Treatment Center, right?
And Facebook.com/Clean Radio. Yeah.
And we're excited about it. We're just going to spend a couple minutes talking like we do here on Sunday nights about different recovery issues. One of the things that really has angered me today is that there are two people trending, and neither one of them is me. One is your dog, Sophie.
Yep.
And the other one is Cash
Bunny.
The rabbit.
Cash Bunny, our mascot. Yeah.
They're trending.
Yeah. Well,
What do you mean,
Fluffy beats out, cool.
Now, Andrew has a dog, Sophie, who's probably the greatest dog ever. And she's very loyal, and that's why we like her. To wrap things up here, Andrew, it's been quite a week in the news. And, I laud any government. I don't mind government getting involved in our lives if they spend money on people getting recovery. Which brings me to the topic we didn't get to today, and Obamacare has been a big topic. What's the update on Obamacare in terms of getting money for your recovery or help?
Well, unfortunately, it's one of these things where, I've talked about a lot that there's only limited resources that people are actually giving for recovery services. And there was a large hope between the Parity Act and through the Affordable Care Act, also known sort of as Obamacare,
right,
that more money would be available and insurance would be available for people with substance abuse. But the demand is so overwhelming for services that the policies that are being approved for the Affordable Care Act are now trending with really high deductibles or copays. So you get a policy, you think it has substance abuse coverage, but you have to pay the first $10,000. So
that's a lot of money.
Right. So for most people in this country, that's effective. The same thing as not having insurance at all.
Yeah.
And so, once again, it's a gaming of the system. It's a lack of understanding of the problem and a lack of good public policy that allows people who put their hard worked for money towards insurance to protect them and their family members. And it's once again an industry swindle to continue high profits in those industries without providing the care that people think that they're paying for.
Well, we at Clean and on this radio show feel that if you need help, there's a way to get it. And there's, the people that try hard enough get it. And if you call us, we'll help you get it. And that's, you can't be turned down. You should not be turned down for any kind of help in recovery. Enjoy your kale week. You and I, we should go
next week.
kale.
Next week, I'm coming back with the #1 kale recipe.
All right, if you have one, put it on our website.
We'll try it on the air next week,
and we will send you a big prize.
A big prize of clean.
No, you'll get something. But, I don't know. The good news is
get some regular lettuce.
Stay healthy. See you next week.
Bye.
Don't let addiction to drugs or alcohol steal another year of your life. KLEAN Treatment Center provides world-class addiction assistance that also treats the underlying causes and provides vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean. Live, kind, professional help is standing by to provide immediate assistance or to simply answer questions and provide guidance. If you or someone you care about is suffering from addiction, take action now. Log on to cleantreatmentcenters.com. That's clean with a K.